So for a long signal, Alejandro is looking for a short trend, right? So a short trend is defined by using swing points here. So it's defined by a lower high and a lower low. So if we go into the image here, as he points out here, we have a long signal at this point. But if we look back, right, we can see that we have a lower low and we have a lower high, right? Or we have a lower low and then a lower high. And then once price reverses, so when price reverses, so the long signal occurs, right, within a short trend, but price must make a higher low, right? So we see that we have a lower low down here, and then we get a lower high, but then we also need a higher low to occur. So a long signal cannot occur off of a lower low. It needs to happen off of a higher low there. All right. So so you can kind of infer that basically, we're looking for basically a bit of a downtrend, getting this lower low and lower high. And then this higher low, might infer a reversal of that short-term downtrend, or maybe it's even a longer-term downtrend. So this higher low is kind of inferring a possible trend reversal there. And then, so simply a short is going to be the opposite situation here. So we have a higher high back here, higher high back here, and then we're looking for higher lows, right? And then we have a higher low back here, and then a lower high. So the lower high, possibly inferring a trend direction reversal. Once that higher low is broken, right, that's the signal point right there. Now, the key to getting this to work, right, is the indicator. So these screenshots are shown using the swings indicator here so you can visually see the higher highs and the higher lows and things like that. But what BloodHound needs, I think there's a couple of ways that this can be built in BloodHound. I think we could use the swings indicator, but I think it's going to be easier if we use the swings, this is the swing trend indicator, but I think it's going to be easier if we use the swings highs lows indicator. And so let's pull up the indicators list so everybody can take a look. All right, so if we open up Shark Indicators, right, we have the swings highs lows, and then we have the swing trend indicator, right? So what we see on this screenshot here is the swing trend indicator. So I think it's going to be easier if we use the swings highs and lows indicator in BloodHound. So I guess to give a little summary explanation, if we use the swing trend indicator, the swing trend will output when a higher high is being made, and so we can discover that using a solver when higher highs are being made, and then hold on to that with a toggle node, right? And then we have to detect when a higher low is developing, right? And then track that into a toggle node. And then we'd have to identify when a lower high is developing and track that into a toggle node. So we're basically tracking these different situations into a toggle node, and then we just kind of take a polling on those toggle nodes and see when they're all in agreement. But that to me is in my mind that seems a lot more complicated to grasp as a concept. So I think using the swings highs lows, which draws the lines, we can just track when the swing highs where the plots are. Right. So with the swing high lows, it's going to plot the higher highs and the lower highs. Right. It's going to plot all these, and we can just compare them together. So it's definitely going to be a lot easier to understand, I think. So I'm going to put the swing highs lows on the chart here, and then again, it's the swing indicators that are doing all the work, in identifying the swing points. So what's critical to this is getting your indicator set up correctly, right? I mean, BloodHound is not going to force this to work for you. So you do need to make sure that you get your indicators set up, you know, and detecting the swing points the way that you want them to be detected. And so then once you have the indicator set up correctly, then you can start building the logic in BloodHound. All right, so this time we're also going to, so with the swing highs and lows, let's just hit apply here, right? So we can see that, right now we can see the widest tops and the widest bottoms. Those plots are on. The tightest plots are set to transparent. So basically they're invisible right now. And so we can see, right, swing highs and swing lows are being plotted. And this time I'm going to enable the tightest tops and tightest bottoms. Let's see here. Let's do lime. Try hot pink. Let's apply this. There. All right. So if we look at the indicator, we can see that, right, we have the highest highs plotted with the hash line. And then the lower highs are plotted with the dots, right? So that is basically, depending on the number of swings here. So we have it set to 4, which is the default. So depending on the number of swings can affect how the tightest plots work. But right, the dots, which are the lower highs or the higher lows, let's see if I can find, yeah, so here's some dots, red dots here coming from higher lows, right? And those are the tightest plots, right? So basically the widest plots are going to be the swing points on the outside, right? And the tightest plots are going to be the swing points on the inside. Yeah, here we go. So here's the first lowest low down here. And so we can see, right, it's the widest plot. It's the hash line. And then when we get a higher low, right, it's plotted as a dot, right? So that's the tightest plot, right? And then eventually we can see that once a new higher low is created, the dots, this becomes the widest, or this becomes the tightest bottom. So the dots move up, and so relatively speaking, this is a higher low. But if we look back, this is actually the lowest low, and so we can see the dots turn into the dashed, or the hash lines, right? The dashed lines. So this previous swing low becomes the lower low, by the indicator. So, what all this means to building this system here is, let's find, so right here we have a long signal. All right, so let's see. So for a long signal, we need a short trend. And again, so what's the short trend? A lower low and a lower high. We have our lower low. Once we get a higher low, we get the dots, right? The dots plot. And of course, you'll notice that, there is 2 bars before that swing low is identified, right? So we can see that there's a little bit of a gap here. So obviously swing point indicators can't identify a swing point on the actual bar, right? Indicators can't predict the future. So obviously price has to move a little bit before you actually know whether a low point is going to be a low point and locked in there. So we can see that there is a little bit of a delay here. So the soonest we could get a signal is when this higher low is detected, right, identified. And so if we draw a line, right, that would be on this bar, right? So this bar is the soonest that a signal could occur, because this bar is the first bar at which this low point is actually identified by the indicator. But as we can see, it actually takes a couple more bars before we actually break this high point. So we're actually okay here. So, we have the hash lines and the dotted lines. So when we see the hash line and the dotted line stacked on top of each other, we know that there's been a lower low and there's been a higher low, right? But more specifically, what we're looking for, right? Because look what about, right here, right? If we look at this lower low, Well, there is a dotted plot right here, right? But of course, that is a low point going way back here. So what we're looking for, yeah, hopefully this will be true every time. What I'm going to be building, or what I'm going to have BloodHound look for, is when the dots step up, right? When the dots move up, when they change price and move higher. And that is going to tell me that this higher low was identified, right? So we need a combination of things. We need a lower low down here below the higher low. And then we also need the dotted plots to move higher, to step up, right? So we're looking for two things: the widest plots below the tightest plots, and then we need the tightest plots to step up, and that identifies the lower low and the higher low for us in BloodHound. So there we have it, and so now it's time to start building. All right, so first thing we need to do is put a file name in here. So let's hit the change button. Today's New Year date here. All right, there we go, January 7th. And I'm going to switch over to the Logic tab to start a new Logic template here. So we hit the new button. Okay, something like that. Swing point, trend, reversal, breakout. It's kind of what we have going on here. Let's see. I always like to kind of start with the easy, identifying the easy conditions first. And so one of those easy conditions here is, identifying when the tightest bottoms step up or the tightest tops step down, right? Just checking for that indicator moving down, not indicator, but plot moving down or plot moving up. So to do that, we're using a comparison solver, right? And what we're going to do, if we stretch this out to help illustrate, is we're going to compare the most recent plot to one bar back, right? We're going to compare the same plot. We're going to compare it from the current bar to the previous bar back, right? So this would be the most recent bar, and then we're going to compare it to the plot one bar back, one bar ago. So let's see here. All right, so we're identifying swing point, higher lows or lower highs. Okay, let's connect that in. And now it's a matter of plugging in our swing highs and lows indicator here. All right, so the number of swings is 4. The swing strength is 7. So actually, we didn't need to adjust anything from the default settings here. And so let's see here. So for a long signal, we're looking at the tightest bottoms, right? The tightest bottoms for a long signal. Right, so the tightest bottoms are the pink dots, right? And the tightest tops are the green dots. So, so we're using the tightest tops we're using for a short signal. Okay, and now for input B, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to plug in that swing indicator there, and again, set our plots the same. So for a long, we're using the tightest bottoms. And for a short signal, we're going to be using the tightest tops. So we have input A, input B, the swing indicator, but remember, input A is going to look at the recent bar, and input B is going to look at one bar back, one bar ago. So to effectively do that, that's what a displacement will do. So we set the displacement to 1, like so. And yeah, there we go. So when we get a higher low, yeah, I think eventually, I'm going to have to find some other solution. Because I don't think this is going to work under every situation here. In any case, we'll just, we'll keep going forward here. But we can see that when the widest bottoms steps up, right, we get a long signal. And when the widest tops steps down, we get a short signal. All right, so that's one condition we're looking for. The other condition here is, comparing the widest bottoms to the tightest bottoms there. So let's set that solver up as well. So again, that's just going to be another comparison solver here. All right, so this time we're comparing lower lows to higher lows and higher highs to lower highs. Let's see here. So again, input A and input B are going to be that swing high-low indicator. So there we go. Plug that in. Let's see. This time we want, for a long, we want the tightest bottom to be above the widest bottoms here. So input A is going to be the tightest, it's going to be the tightest bottoms and the tightest tops. Yeah, I think that should do it. And then for input B, that will be the widest plots down here. Right, so input B are the widest plots. Yeah, and input A is the tightest. Let's see here. So, yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, so as we can see, we have almost constant long and short output. So actually it looks like this solver really isn't going to be necessary. And that's just because of the way the indicator's set up. So actually, yeah, now that I realize it, the widest bottoms are always going to be below the tightest tops. I mean, that's exactly how those plots are designed to operate. Yeah, so this really, I think, is unnecessary. Yeah, I think it's kind of really the logic is going to function around this plot here. So it's going to go back to where we're at here. All right, so what I'm thinking about is, I need to incorporate this lower high detection into it. And so right now, this lower high is giving me a short output. But if we're building a long signal, I need long outputs, right? Only a long output will build a long signal. So I'm just kind of considering, how do I want to basically convert this short signal into a long signal? So that way I can say, all right, we've identified a lower high and we have identified a higher high. And so once we get those two, we have the trend basically identified. We have the short trend or the long trend identified. And then the last step is to actually detect this crossover here. So, well, this may not be the most efficient way, but it's an easier way to think about it. So what I'm going to do is basically build another one of these solvers, but just reverse the outputs. Reverse the outputs for me. Yeah, so let's grab another comparison solver. All right, so simply I just basically kind of reversed the names here. All right, so this time for a long, we're looking for a lower high. So the lower high is going to give us a long output. Whereas the other solver, right, the higher low is giving us a long output. So these are, so the outputs are just going to be opposite of each other. So let's just kind of go through here and quickly set these up. So now the widest tops is going to give me a long output, and the widest bottoms will give me a short output, right? So I'm simply reversing the plots, right? So in the solver here above, we had the plots selected like this, and so now we're just simply reversing the plot selection there, like that. Yeah, let's connect that in as well. All right, now input B. Let's also plug in the swing highs and lows indicator, and again, reverse the plots like that. Click OK. And remember, we need our displacement in here so that input B is looking 1 bar back, right? And then also, since we're looking for the widest tops to move down for a long signal, our long output needs to be reversed. So we're going to reverse our long output like so, and reverse the short output like so. So there we go. All right, so now that we have the long outputs reversed there, now we can see when we get a lower high, we get that long output. All right, so now we need to extend. We need to extend this lower high detection forward until we get the higher low. And we don't know how long, we don't know how many bars, how long that's going to take. It's not going to take too long, but really we don't know how long that's going to take. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that into a toggle node. And the toggle node is going to hold on to this basically forever. Yeah, so unfortunately, our toggle node is flipping. It's flipping on us. It's giving us a short output just before the signal. All right. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is for the inputs, I'm going to set this to off. Yeah, I'm going to set the opposite signals, just deactivate that, so that actually is doing no function now, right? Before when an opposite signal would come in, right, force off, so the long signals, or the long output was being forced off when a short signal would come in. So what I'm going to do is I actually don't need this. I'm going to set it to no action. And what I need to do is identify, let's just say here, let's pretend, right? So we have our lower high. Now what if price kept on going down, right? And price kept on going down. So there was no higher low. Let's say the higher low just never materialized, right? Because price just kept on going down. All right. So if price crosses this previous low point, then we know that the setup has failed, right? The setup has failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, let's see here, I'm going to create a crossover detection. Basically, just like what we have back here, right? If we look at this back here, right, we have a lower high, and we have a lower low, right? So we have a lower low here, but what we're missing is the higher low, because price just kept on going and it crossed our previous low point. So yeah, so if price crosses this plot, then we know that this setup failed, right? So and this is a crossover condition. So if price, if the closing price crosses or equals this swing low, then we know we have a failed setup. So I'm going to create a crossover solver. All right, so we're looking for the closing price to cross over the lower low or the higher high point, right? That's what we're going to have is either a lower low plot, right, or a higher high plot. All right, so input A, that's going to be price. So we'll change this to price, and we want to make sure that actually, you know what? It's not going to be the low. It's not going to be the closing price, because what if the wick? What if one of these wicks crossed it? That would invalidate it too. If a wick crossed it, that could set up a lower low as well. So I don't know, I'll just call it price. But what we're actually looking for let's see here is, yeah, if the low price, right? If the low price, the low of the wick crosses that swing low, or in the opposite situation, you know, for if price is going higher, if the high wick crosses the higher high. All right. And now input B, that's going to be our swing indicator. Plug that in. And what we're looking for is, let's see here, is we're using the widest plots here. And then one last thing that we need is, as we can see, price is crossing down, right? Price is crossing down over the red plot line here. But what I, let's see, what I want, well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, let's just, all right. Instead of complicating this thing, let's just reverse that. And let's see here. All right, I'm going to reverse my prices here. So we're going to generate a short output if the low crosses that plot. So there we go. There we have it. So this is the bar, right, that crossed the prior low swing point. And so that was the low of the bar, crossed it, right? So we generated a short signal if the low of the bar crossed our swings indicator. And so I'm going to use this short signal to turn off the long output. So if I connect that in, and then for the reset, if I take the opposite signal and use that to force the toggle node off. So here, perfect situation here. So remember, this toggle node is, let's see here, let's name this. This is finding lower highs and or higher lows. Normally I don't do this one by naming convention, but I think it'll help explain what this toggle node is doing a little better. So this toggle node, when a lower high is detected, we're going to get a long output from it, right? And we can see that here, actually, in lots of places here, right? This is a lower high, right, compared to this higher high. It's a lower high, and and once that lower high is detected, so remember, right, there's a couple of bars delay before the indicator can detect this high point. And so as soon as it is detected, right, we get a long output coming from the toggle node. Right? And then if price keeps going lower and crosses the swing low, then the toggle node gets turned off. Right? So basically this is a failed setup. And same thing over here. We have a lower high, so the toggle node turns on, and then when price crosses the prior low point, the toggle node gets turned off because that's a failed setup right there. Getting a little too carried away here with all the drawing objects. There we go. So here we have our lower high, and we can see the toggle node turns on, right? That toggle node turns on, and it's staying on because price didn't break down below, right? So we're good to go there. Yeah, and actually that toggle node keeps turning on. So we're going to need to turn this toggle node off again after we get our signal, right? We don't want that toggle node left on because it might create some false positive signals, right? With this toggle node turned on, yeah, it might create a situation where we're getting incorrect, long trade signals. Let's just kind of, we'll figure that out here in just a moment. So here we have, so we're at the point where the lower high is identified, and we have the long output continuing until, right, remember this guy over here, this comparison solver, it's identifying the higher low, right? It's identifying the higher low. So we need this higher low, and actually maybe not. I wonder. Yeah, interesting. This toggle node might have just boiled the whole thing down to a really simple solution. So, yeah, right, because we know that, let's see here, let's take a look here. So, we have to shrink this kind of up here, right? So, as price is stepping down, right, we're identifying all of these lower highs. And of course, these lower highs, if you have a lower high, then you definitely have a lower low, right? You have a low point made before the lower high. So this toggle node, right, is, it's identifying the lower highs, and just the nature of a lower high requires a lower low. And then if price crosses that prior swing point, then the toggle node turns off. So it seems like this, this kind of logic, we might be able to boil it all down to just this toggle node. We'll kind of see here. We'll kind of test out a few ideas here. So, but the final step that we need, which is, to actually get the signal, right, we need price to cross the prior high point. So let's get that crossover solver. Let's see here. Yeah, it's going to be similar to this crossover solver, but we're looking at different plots. So remember, this crossover solver, it's looking at the widest bottoms. It's looking at the hash line, or the widest tops, right, the green hash. But we need to look at the dotted plots, right? Price is going to be crossing the dots. It's not going to be crossing, or the signal is when price crosses the dots, not when price crosses the hash line. So let's go and create another crossover solver here, and let's move some stuff up out of our way there. All right, so let's pull this down here, plug that in. All right, so we're looking for the close of these Renko bars to cross over the lower high or the higher low. So again, for a long signal, price is going to be crossing a lower high. So, all right, so input A, that will be price. And this time we are actually going to be using the closing price of the bar. And so input B, that will be our swing highs and lows indicator. And let's see, so we want the tightest tops for long signals and the bottoms for short signals, right? So if we look at this, right, price is crossing the tightest top line there. And so the tightest top is where we want a long signal. All right, so we got that. And there we go. There's our crossover signal, right? And we have some other crossover signals, but of course, once we connect this all together, so remember that, so the toggle node is basically kind of acting as a filter, making sure that we actually get a lower high or a higher low, things like that. So we need to basically connect our trend filter with our signal condition, right? So the toggle node, basically its function is it's identifying this short trend, and this long trend, and then the crossover solver is actually the final triggering condition that generates the signal. Right. So let's connect these together with a AND node. And that should be our final signal. There. Okay, good. Yeah, so as I kind of expected here, yeah, we need a little bit, yeah, we do need to beef up our filtering here because we do have some long signals, but these are not lower lows. Yeah, these are not lower lows. Yeah, so this will be fairly easy to do because what I can see on the chart is our widest bottom is stepping up. So if the widest bottoms step up, then I know that higher lows are being made. Right, so I can see that, yeah, we have, you know, as the red hash line steps up, higher lows are being made. So these are not lower lows. But if I go back here, I can see that the red hash, or the widest bottom plot, is stepping down. So we do need to add this check into our system. Yeah, so making sure that this plot is stepping down is confirming that we are actually working with lower lows, right? That lower lows were occurring. Yeah. So, let's see. Yeah, still looks like we don't need this other solver there. And let's see, what was this? Yeah, let's repurpose this comparison solver here. All right, so this solver is basically going to find lower lows and higher highs. And I guess that's kind of a good way to name these things. So this solver is finding lower highs and higher lows. So there we go. We'll just kind of rename these guys. And again, lower lows are going to output a long, right? It's going to be a long output because remember we're using lower lows, or a long signal requires lower lows. So so this solver is going to generate a long output when lower lows are detected. So let's open up these indicators and make sure our plots are correct. So no, we want the widest bottoms for a long output, and we want the widest tops. Remember, the widest tops are basically the higher highs. Widest bottoms are the lower lows. Right? So we want our selection like this. So we're using the lower lows to generate a long signal or a long output. All right, so same thing here. Let's go into input B. And there we go. So that's already set up for us correctly. And we need that displacement trick here, right? Because, when we're to identify if a plot steps down, you're looking at the recent plot and comparing it to one bar back. So, oops, there. Oh, let's connect that in. There we go. We should have that connected in like so. And let's see. And we do need to reverse our output here. Like so. And there we have it. Ooh, what happened there? All right, let's get rid of that. All right, so we can see, right, if we follow the red hash lines, which is our widest bottoms, right? When it steps down, we get a long signal. Steps down, we get a long signal. Steps down. So we're getting a long signal whenever a lower low is being identified. And let's find the opposite. Oh, here we go. We have opposites right here, right? So let's get rid of this. Yeah. So here we have it. When the widest tops are stepping up, we know that higher highs are being generated, right? Higher high, that's a double top, but we have a higher high, higher high. So all of these red signals here are identifying higher highs. So now we just need to incorporate this, somewhere back here into our filtering. Right, so if we look at this, it's going to go, let's go back to where, right, we have it, back to where we have a long signal here. This long signal is the first thing that we identify, right? So the lower low is the first thing we identify. And then as price keeps moving, then we want to identify, then we're looking to identify the lower highs and higher lows. Oh, man. Tell you what, talking about swing points can be a real tongue twister. Okay, so we're going to shove that into a toggle node. We're going to stick this into a toggle node here, right? So there we go. So whenever we get these lower lows, we need to extend that long output forward, right, until we get to our signal. But as you can see, right, the toggle node is not turning off, right? So we need something to turn that toggle node off at some point. Yeah. When we get our crossover condition here, which is the signal, right? So basically, right, there we go, sorry. That's our signal. So yeah, once we get the crossover, our signal is done, and so we can now turn off this toggle node. So this is, let's see here. Let's give that toggle node, let's give this toggle node a name here. All right, so when we get lower lows, where this toggle node is going to output a long, and then when higher highs are found, it's going to output a short, right? Like so. And then what I'm going to see here. Here we go. Okay. So this crossover solver, let's put it into that reset there. And for this toggle node, we're going to go into the resets, and I think it's on signal, right? Because let's take a look at this crossover solver. Remember, we're using a long signal or a long output to turn the toggle node off. So this toggle node, when it gets a long, when this toggle node is outputting a long, we're using a long from the crossover signal to turn the longs off. So on the resets, it's going to be on signal, off. And bingo, there we go. So we see the toggle node turns off once we get that signal. But if you pay close attention, look, the toggle node was turned off before the signal bar, right? Remember, the arrow is our signal bar. So the toggle node is turning off one bar too soon. So we actually need to delay it. So we're going to use a look back node to actually delay the signal, right? So if we look at the output, right? So this look back node, we can see the crossover output is 1 bar late, right? It's been 1 bar delayed. So that's what we actually want to go into our toggle node. Right, so let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Right. So let's kind of take a look here. So, right, so here we go. So we can see lower lows are being made, and so our toggle node turns on, right? It turns on the long output when lower lows are being made. So we can see prices stepping down. And then once we get to our, so 1 bar after our signal bar, that toggle node's turned off. And then it resets, waiting for the next setup. It's waiting for, right, it's waiting for this next short trend kind of lower low to set up for another signal. And even if we go back here, look back here, right? Lower low, lower low, lower low, lower low, and then price crosses our high point. And right, so here's actually another signal. Yeah, so we actually know, we can kind of infer that there's going to be another signal right there. Yeah, there we go. Move that a little higher. There we go. Yeah, another signal right there. And then this toggle node turns off. All right. So we have this working now. So let's connect this all together like so. And that should give us some better results. All right. So let's close this out, and remember, as we learned earlier, hitting the red X actually saves all of our work back to the file. So whenever we close the BloodHound window, that saves our work back to the file. And so now let's just kind of scan through the chart and see what we get. So there's our signal, and let's see here. Yeah, so looking at this, I'm not sure if this actually right. Obviously, this didn't qualify because a lower low is made, right? So it almost worked out. So we got a lower low and a lower high, but we didn't get a higher low. Instead, we got a lower low, and so this was a failed setup. Yeah, so all's good there. All right, so let's kind of keep scrolling back here. And let's see what happened here. Oh, yeah. So a lower low was made prior to price crossing. So actually that was incorrect. That was not a signal. Yeah, because we had a lower low, not a higher low. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, great. So we do have a short signal here, a couple of short signals. So let's kind of scan through these and verify. So we do have a higher high made, and then we have a lower high, we have a higher low, and then price crosses that low point. Yeah, let's just double check here. So we need a higher high, a higher low, and a lower high. Yeah, so we got our higher high. We do have our higher low, and we have our lower high. And bingo, and a crossover. Price crossing over that swing low. Okay, yeah. So that looks correct. And let's see what else we got here. Yeah, so this is a good illustration of how important your indicators are, right? So you know, on first glance, you look at this and go, man, this kind of looks a little messy here. You know, we had a swing high, a swing low, swing high, swing low, swing, you know, boom, 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 boom. But remember, indicators are doing 90% of the work. So it's critical that your indicator is identifying the conditions that you're looking for, right? So it's the indicator that's identifying the swing points, you know, which is so critical to this system here. So if your indicator is not, you know, detecting these, you know, of course this is subjective, but you know, if you are considering these reversal points as being swing points, well, then you need to get your indicator, you know, working in, I don't want to say correctly, but you need to get your indicator to identify those as swing points if you know, subjectively consider those swing points, right? But what we do have here is, you know, the indicator said, okay, we have a higher high. Great. Check one. We have a higher low. Check two. And we have a lower high. And so the indicator basically ignored all this stuff in between here, right? It ignored all this stuff in between. The swing indicator ignored all that stuff, right? So it was just looking at those 3 points, and then we got a crossover, and bingo, there's our signal. Yeah. So again, you know, my point is that this is a good illustration of how important it is that you have your indicators set up correctly to identify, you know, the conditions correctly. You know, and again, in this case, it's the swing highs and lows is identifying the swing points for us, right? So if you're building some other system, right, it's your indicators identifying the conditions for you or for BloodHound that's critical to get set up correctly. You know, otherwise you're obviously your BloodHound signals aren't going to work correctly either. So, and let's see what else we have here. Yeah, so again, a higher high, a higher low, a lower high, and a crossover. Bingo. There we have it. All right, well, I think we are finished with this. So let me see if there's any follow-up questions on this topic first before we move on. Yeah, so let's see. Actually, okay, so we didn't actually need this solver here. Let's see. Yeah, basically this solver and this solver were basically the same, just the outputs, right? The long output and the short outputs were basically reversed. So let's just get rid of this guy. So again, a good practice is to keep a clean house, right? So in BloodHound, you know, you want to keep a clean house. You don't want to have a bunch of solvers, unused solvers, you know, solvers that are doing nothing. You don't want them sitting around in your template because they're wasting CPU time, right? Basically, they're causing NinjaTrader to calculate all these indicator conditions, and it's just wasting CPU time, right? And it can slow down your system. It can slow down NinjaTrader. So it's good practice to keep a clean house with your template here. So yeah, so this solver here we didn't use, so I am going to delete it off the list. That way, it's not being calculated, wasting CPU time. So, all right. So keep a clean house with your templates. You know, we do know that it's fairly common for people just to, especially with the logic board, you know, you just grab a new solver, do something, go, no, I don't want that. Grab a new solver, do something, go, no, I don't want that. And you end up with a template with just a bunch of unused solvers all over the place. And that is just chewing up calculation time. It's just chewing up your CPU, wasting CPU time. You know, they're doing unnecessary calculations. Yeah, so keep a clean house, and your NinjaTrader will run a lot faster. So, all right, so let's see what kind of questions we got here. All right, well, looks like Alejandro's happy. So he got his new year started off on the right foot, I hope. And so good. I don't see any follow-up questions on this, so I think we're done with our first question for the new year. All right, and well, it looks like Vito's in the room. Hey, Vito, Happy New Year's.